The Young and the Restless spoilers Tuesday full episodes May 13, 2025 Tomorrow's episode of The Young and the Restless opens on a world that seems to spin just a little too fast. A world in desperate need of the steady hand and unflappable calm that only Claire Grace Newman can provide. As the morning sun filters through the ornate windows of Newman Enterprises' boardroom, Claire arrives, her presence like a soothing balm on fresh wounds. She moves with deliberate grace, her thoughtful gaze sweeping the room as though marking each frayed nerve and unresolved tension. The usual hum of corporate ambition is replaced today by a palpable hush, a collective intake of breath in anticipation of confrontation. Billy Abbott has barely settled into the plush leather chair across from her when Claire begins, soft-spoken, measured, yet infused with an undercurrent of steel. She reminds everyone, Billy, Victoria, even resourceful Sharon, that in times of crisis, it is easier to surrender to panic than to harness it. As the camera lingers on her composed expression, viewers can almost feel the room slow its frenetic spin, ready to heed her careful counsel. Behind the velvet calm of Claire's intervention lies a marriage strained by forces neither partner saw coming. At Society, the gallery buzzing with excited chatter, Mariah Copeland and Tessa Porter appear as a picture-perfect couple. Outer reflections of unity that belie the fissures beneath. Mariah's smile falters when a whispered rumor reaches her ears, suggesting that Tessa's new professional collaboration with Chance and his firm is teetering on the edge of conflict of interest. Tessa, ever the pragmatist, tries to deflect the tension with light-hearted banter, offering Mariah a seat at her new label's upcoming showcase, but Mariah can sense the worry behind every carefully chosen word. The camera cuts to a stolen moment backstage, Tessa adjusting a bolt on a rigging frame, her jaw clenched, her thoughts a whirl of contract clauses and creative visions. Meanwhile, Mariah watches from the wings, her heart pounding as she wrestles with the fear that the life they have built might crack under the weight of professional pressure. As a spotlight flickers overhead, it illuminates not just the stage but the cracks in their typically rock-solid foundation, setting the stage for a confrontation that neither woman will approach lightly. Meanwhile, elsewhere in Genoa City, Phyllis Summers is sharpening her resolve like a finely honed blade, her mind ablaze with intel that could upend lives. Ever since Red got the boot, a decision engineered behind closed doors. Phyllis has carried the sting of betrayal like a wound that refuses to heal. She sifts through confidential memos, her manicured nails tapping impatiently on the glossy surface of her desk as she recalls the promise she made in the dark aftermath of Red's dismissal: Billy and Sally Spectra would pay. But Phyllis's ire runs deeper than lost colleagues and corporate disagreements. At the heart of her fury is Daniel Romalotti Jr.'s departure from the firm. To Phyllis, Daniel's exit was not merely a resignation, it was an act of desertion, the ultimate snub to her years of toil and sacrifice. She had taken him under her wing when he first stumbled through the door, granting him opportunities that few would, and in return he turned his back on her. Armed with pages of Daniel's departure memo and insider reports on Billy's financial forecasts, Phyllis crafts a plan that is as precise as it is vengeful. She knows Billy will dismiss her threats as the ravings of a scorned woman. After all, in Billy's eyes, she is a wild card, a force of nature that can't be predicted or contained. But Sally Spectra, ever attuned to the nuances of their circle, recognizes the gravity of Phyllis's words. On the terrace at Society, with the hum of Genoa City's nightlife rising below, Sally corners Billy. Her voice trembles not with fear but with urgency as she recounts every loaded glance and every veiled warning she witnessed. Billy brushes it off with a dismissive laugh, assuring Sally that Phyllis will calm down once she channels her energy elsewhere. Yet Sally's eyes remain troubled, fixed on Billy as though searching his soul for the conviction he lacks. Back in the boardroom, the tension becomes a living creature, coiling and uncoiling with every exchanged glance. Claire Grace Newman senses the undercurrents, and with each carefully measured word she draws them into the light. She addresses Mariah and Tessa by name, recognizing the subtle tremor in Mariah's voice, the practiced facade in Tessa's posture. She reminds them that love is not tested by ease but by adversity, that the true measure of commitment is the willingness to lean on each other when the path narrows. Her appeal is not merely emotional. It is intellectual, weaving in lessons from past Newman triumphs and losses, illustrating that unity is both a strategy and a sanctuary. As Mariah listens, tears well in her eyes, not of sorrow, but of relief at being seen and heard. Tessa's defiance softens, replaced by a vulnerable gratitude that speaks volumes. Meanwhile, Phyllis's machinations gather momentum like a storm on the horizon. She arranges a clandestine meeting with a key board member who still harbors resentment over Red's firing, dangling Daniel's name and Billy's projected missteps as bait. Under the dim glow of a forgotten conference room light, pages change hands, secrets are whispered, and alliances are forged in the shadows. Phyllis's lips curve into a cunning smile as she imagines the fallout. Billy blindsided by a hostile takeover vote, Daniel's reputation in tatters, Sally caught in the crossfire of a feud she never asked to join. Phyllis knows that power is a game of perception, and she intends to reshape the board's perception of Billy Abbott into that of an unreliable leader on the brink of collapse. As the episode hurtles toward its climax, the scene shifts to the halls of Crimson Lights. Nick Newman and Sally Spectra share a tense exchange, each tiptoeing around the unspoken. Sally's knowledge of Phyllis's vendetta, Nick's worry for his brother Billy, and the role that love and loyalty play in a city ruled by ambition and betrayal. Nick, always the voice of reason, cautions Sally against letting emotions cloud her judgment, but Sally counters that sometimes the most rational action is to prepare for the worst. Their conversation echoes the themes of the night: trust versus suspicion, passion versus pragmatism, unity versus isolation. In the final moments, the focus returns to Claire Grace Newman as she exits the boardroom, her mission for the evening complete. She glances back at the group gathered behind her, Mariah and Tessa standing side by side, hands entwined, Billy sitting alone, his expression a blend of defiance and uncertainty, and Phyllis retreating into the shadows, a predator satisfied with the first taste of her own venom. Claire's lips curl into a knowing smile, for she understands that slowing things down is only the beginning. Tomorrow's episode has laid the groundwork, but the real drama will unfold when these forces collide, when alliances fracture or fortify, and when every heart in Genoa City is tested by fire. As the screen fades to black, viewers are left with a single, electrifying question: when the pieces finally move, which will hold and which will shatter? Tomorrow's episode of The Young and the Restless promises to push every character to the brink, as old alliances fracture and new bargains are struck in the high-stakes corridors of power. Phyllis Summers, fueled by a simmering rage over Red's abrupt dismissal and Daniel Romalotti Jr.'s departure from Abbott Communications, has set her sights directly on Victor Newman himself. In a scene charged with barely contained hostility, she storms into Newman Enterprises with evidence in hand. Internal memos, financial forecasts, and boardroom minutes painstakingly gathered to undermine Billy Abbott's leadership and to expose any vulnerability in the Spectre-Abbott alliance. Victor, seated behind his imposing desk like a modern-day patriarch, does not flinch as Phyllis presents herself. He leans forward, eyebrows raised, and asks in that low, deliberate tone, "And what information do you wish to sell me, Phyllis?" But she will not cough up her secrets so easily. With a sly half-smile, she tells him that she'll speak when she has exactly what she wants in return, an unspecified but unshakable promise that hints at corporate sabotage and a seismic shift in the power dynamic at Abbott Communications. The question on everyone's mind is, what deal will Phyllis and Victor strike behind closed doors, and how will it imperil the very future of Billy Abbott's media empire? Phyllis knows that Victor still holds sway over key board members and can influence the vote on any hostile takeover attempt. She has already planted seeds of doubt among Billy's closest allies by leaking hints that his recent acquisition strategies have left the company overleveraged and at risk of collapse. If Victor agrees to grant her immunity from any legal fallout, plus a seat on the board of Abbott Communications, Phyllis could then leverage her insider position to steer major contracts to Newman Enterprises, simultaneously crippling Sally Spectra's fledgling brand and tightening Victor's grip over Genoa City's media landscape. In return, Victor, ever the shrewd strategist, will will extract concessions of his own. Priority access to Abbott's lucrative advertising slots and the right to veto any new hires who might threaten his dominance. The result will be a Faustian bargain in which both powers gain short-term advantage at the expense of Billy's long-term security. But Phyllis's maneuvering is only half the story. Meanwhile, Claire Grace Newman finds her own world unraveling. After months of clandestine chemistry with Kyle Abbott, she musters the courage to approach her father, Victor, to seek his blessing for the next step, moving in with Kyle. In the ornate drawing room of Newman Enterprises, Claire faces her father's inscrutable gaze, heart-pounding. She lays bare her intentions, speaking of love's promise, of shared mornings in Kyle's renovated loft, of merging family traditions and forging a new chapter together. Yet Victor, conditioned by years of boardroom battles and personal betrayals, refuses to offer his blessing. His disappointment is palpable, less a condemnation of Kyle himself than a fear that Claire's impulsive union will distract her from both her duties at Newman Enterprises and the precarious balance of family loyalty. In that moment, Victor's coldness wounds Claire more deeply than any corporate backstab. She feels abandoned, not just as an heiress torn between two dynasties, but as a daughter seeking her father's approval. Reeling from Victor's rebuff, Claire retreats into introspection. Her usually confident stride slows, and she postpones her plans to move in with Kyle. In the marble-floored halls of her childhood home, she paces alone, mind racing through every syllable of their conversation. Was she too hasty? Did she underestimate the gravity of intertwining her fate with the Abbott legacy? The rhythm of her thoughts echoes the very lesson she once imparted to others, that sometimes the wisest course is to slow down, assess one's desires, and ensure that every step forward is taken with full conviction. By delaying her decision, Claire buys herself time to reconcile her heart's yearnings with the complex realities of corporate politics, familial expectation, and her own quest for independence. As these parallel dramas converge, the ripple effects on Abbott Communications and Newman Enterprises will be profound. If Victor and Phyllis seal their clandestine pact, Billy Abbott will face a two-front war, defending his company against external sabotage and battling the silent coup within his own boardroom. Sally Spectra, caught in the crossfire, may find her artistic ambitions suffocated under a corporate umbrella she never intended to join. Meanwhile, Claire's hesitation could signal a shift in Newman Enterprises' leadership dynamics. Should she choose to remain independent, Victor may be forced to reconsider his succession plans, potentially elevating a different Newman scion or even outsourcing key operations to Abbott Communications itself, ironically strengthening the very rival he sought to undermine. By the time the credits roll, viewers will be left with questions that cut to the core of every character's identity. What price are they willing to pay for loyalty, love, and power? Can Phyllis control the inferno she has ignited, or will her vendetta consume her? Will Victor's refusal to bless Claire's union drive a wedge so deep that nothing can heal it? And will Billy Abbott, blindsided by betrayal on all sides, find the resilience to protect his company and his family? In Genoa City, alliances shift as swiftly as fortunes rise and fall. And tomorrow's episode promises to be the fulcrum on which the next great upheaval pivots. As the dust settles on Victor and Phyllis's covert negotiation and Claire retreats into her own reflections, the scene shifts once more to the heart of the storm, Mariah and Tessa, the couple affectionately dubbed Taraya by devoted fans. In the intimate quiet of their shared loft, walls plastered with photographs documenting milestones both tender and triumphant. Mariah stands before Tessa, shoulders squared, eyes glinting with the painful resolve of someone bracing to shatter more than just silence. She draws a steadying breath and confesses that she has kept a secret, one that could alter everything between them. Though rumors have swirled of infidelity, what Mariah is about to admit is neither a physical betrayal nor a fleeting temptation. It is a choice of trust misplaced, of loyalty ceded to a figure from her past rather than to the woman who stands before her now. Tessa's expression, initially one of hopeful innocence, shifts as Mariah's confession unfolds. The memory of late-night phone calls with Ian Ward, the hushed assurances that it's just a favor, that no one needs to know, plays across Tessa's mind in a blur of doubt. When Mariah finally utters the words, "I asked Ian for information about your career trajectory, to protect you, but in doing so I broke your confidence," it is as though time fractures. Tessa's breath catches, tears spill unbidden down her cheeks. She steps forward, voice trembling, insisting that Mariah reconsider this revelation, that it is not the thing to define their relationship. She cries out that love must be stronger than secrets, that forgiveness should flow from honesty, not from denial. In that vulnerable moment, Tessa clings to the hope that their bond can survive even this breach of trust. But Mariah stands firm, the weight of her remorse etched into every line of her face. Slowly, her gaze shifts from Tessa to the empty space beyond, the city lights of Genoa City blurred through the window, mirroring her own uncertainty. Then, with a clarity born of heartbreak and conviction, she turns back to Tessa and delivers the words that cut through the tension like a blade. "You are not the one who needs forgiveness." The silence that follows is deafening, a reckoning for both women. For Tessa, it is the realization that Mariah's actions were never a judgment on her worth, but a confession of Mariah's own failings. For Mariah, it is the first step toward owning her mistakes without hiding behind well-intentioned lies. As the camera pulls back, we glimpse two figures standing apart yet bound by the same promise of love tested by fire. Viewers are left to wonder whether Taraya can bridge the chasm opened by Mariah's misstep, or if this fracture will widen into an unbridgeable divide. What remains certain is that the fan-favorite pairing faces its most formidable trial yet, one defined not by external threats or corporate intrigues, but by the delicate, devastating honesty between two people who dared to trust. Taraya.